Well, there you have it. Justin Trudeau trying out a new pre-budget strategy this year. Instead of waiting until April the 16th, which is budget day, there's a slow striptease going on day after day, one announcement after another, much of it focused, yes, on housing. So far, the promises made totaling about $25 billion in new spending. So where is all that money coming from? If you said taxpayers, bingo, you are right. And all these housing announcements are also getting some of the provinces upset. You heard earlier today on the show from the head of social services in Alberta, the minister there, saying this is Ottawa once again muscling into provincial jurisdiction. So is this pre-budget tour smart strategy, or is it a lingering liability? Let's bring in the front bench. Back with us, Sabrina Grover, Larissa Waller, Guratin Singh, and Rachel Aiello. And I'm going to start with you on this one, Sabrina. Your take on the strategy here. What do you make of it?
I think from a pre-budget perspective, this is, really important for the Prime Minister and the ministers to get out and actually deliver announcements that people are paying attention to. Housing is a national crisis. We've all kind of agreed on that, and this is their chief focus for focusing on affordability as dealing with the crisis through the pre-budget announcements. I think that the Prime Minister wants to be picking a fight with the provinces on this. I don't think Canadians care where the money is coming from. I think they want the problem of housing affordability and supply solved. Over the course of the last week, you've seen announcements both on the market side and the non-market side. I think that's a really smart position for the Housing Minister and the Prime Minister to be in. And I think at the end of the day, the provinces don't have really a foot to stand on by rejecting this money. And the more that they reject, every day they continue to say they don't want $6 billion. They don't want the $600 million. They don't want the $25 billion on loans. Like, I don't understand where the provinces are going to instead fund this from. And I think that is going to become problematic for them, and it's going to become problematic in their own backyards with their constituents.
Rachel, the Prime Minister has said taxes will not go up for the middle class, but of course, people who are above the middle class, corporations, well, it might be free reign when it comes to them. Your take on what we're seeing here in terms of this strategy, because you've been covering it every day.
I have been, and I think to build on your metaphor about a striptease, I think we're all waiting for the big reveal, right? We're waiting to see what the impact of all of these spending announcements is going to be on the bottom line. What is the deficit? How much money is the government allocating in terms of new revenue to try to offset it? These are all the details that we've been trying to get the Prime Minister to answer. And the most recent version of this today, the Prime Minister was saying, maybe we'll announce something on that, or maybe not. Wait to see April 16th when it came to mortgages and relief for Canadians who already have homes. But certainly they have drawn that line in the sand about no new taxes for the middle class eventually, after some wishy-washy responses earlier in the week. But that does, as you noted, leave that room open for other taxes that could come in to help find the revenue they're going to need if they're going to actually remain fiscally prudent while rolling out what right now is about $25.6 billion.
Yeah, thanks for adding it all up for us. And Larissa, back to you. We are going to be seeing announcement after announcement next week as well, ahead of the 16th, and we'll see what's in all of those announcements. Interesting to think that about 2/3 of Canadians are homeowners. So some might be wondering, look, we understand there's a housing crisis, affordability crisis, but what about us? We'll see if there are announcements for homeowners as well next week. But what do you make of what Trudeau and his team, because there's always people around him, behind him, and the Deputy Prime Minister and the Housing Minister, Sean Fraser, day after day after day. What do you think of it all?
From a communications point of view, it makes sense, right? You dominate your headline, you set the narrative, the opposition isn't really ready to attack back. So it makes total sense as a communications rollout. On the money for housing, I think we're seeing campaign Trudeau, and if I was on Team Trudeau, that's the Trudeau I would want in the front window. That's the best version of Justin Trudeau. He's a good campaigner. But he's almost too combative, because he's saying, the provinces have to take this money with all the strings attached, and they don't care about housing, but I do. But the real answer is there's going to be a conversation amongst adults. Cooler heads are going to prevail. And the number one thing that provinces need to build housing is housing enabling infrastructure. And I think that's going to shake out in the long term. On the budget rollout itself, also on the tax question, how are you going to pay for it all? Where I would be worried if I was a Liberal MP is how the government is going to measure who's rich, whose taxes are going up. Because I bet you that most people who the government thinks are rich don't feel that they themselves are rich. And I'm really gonna be watching as what that threshold is for whose taxes are actually gonna go up.
Yeah. Correct. And let's get back to you. It's interesting. One of the lines from the Conservatives targeting Trudeau in these announcements is, you can't live in a photo op, basically criticizing him, saying, a lot of this stuff, by the time it finally rolls out, will be many, many years down the line. And others who are saying, look, this crisis is in part the government's own making, that they were asleep at the wheel. There are many, many, many new people coming into Canada. They knew that and they didn't prepare for it properly. And now they're trying to spend taxpayers' money to clean up their own mess. What's your read, though?
Well, whenever the Conservatives talk about housing, I want to remind Canadians that when Mr. Pierre Poilievre was housing minister, 800,000 affordable homes were lost under that Conservative government. And when we look at the Liberals now, their track record is not much better. 370,000 affordable homes were lost under this current Liberal administration. So what you're seeing is a Liberal government that's had 9 years. They failed Canadians in 9 years. Housing is incredibly unaffordable. And right now, it's the 11th hour. They're trying to roll out all these announcements that really, frankly, no one believes because it doesn't matter how much they promise, it's way too late. And on the other hand, you have Conservatives where it's so disingenuous for Mr. Poilievre with a straight face to say that he's going to actually fix the housing crisis when he played a role in creating it. So these are both bad options. They're not what Canadians need, and they're both going to ultimately drive us to a position where housing is continually going to be more unaffordable for everyday Canadians.
Back to you, Sabrina, in Calgary. There does seem to be a real strategy here on the part of the Liberals to take back the initiative, take back the narrative, get the news media to cover these announcements, show the government, message, we care about you if you're having trouble, affording a home, or if you're a renter who's being taken advantage of by a bad landlord. And I've started to hear, this phrase by Justin Trudeau recently, it may have been workshopped, about all we want is fairness, fairness, and fairness. What's going on?
Certainly, I think that they're trying to win back younger voters. I think that's why the fairness has been accompanied by every generation. I think there's a thought that by talking about rentals, by talking about more like affordable housing, that they are going to target some Gen Zs, they are going to target millennials. And I think that has been a deliberate strategy by Team Trudeau to bring those folks back into the fold. And, I think that Pierre Poilievre has said every day that housing and all the cost of living, all of that is Justin Trudeau's fault. And I think that these pre-budget announcements this week and last week, the Prime Minister said, okay, I'm going to tell you exactly what we're going to do about it. We're going to roll out these funds. We're going to attack the problem. And I think that's why he said to the provinces, take our money or don't take our money, but we are going to be attacking the problem. And I think for younger voters, they just want to see action. I don't think they care which level of government is dealing with the issue, as long as things are getting done.
I guess, Rachel Aiello, on the political side of things, the Liberals are hoping that this will help turn some of their terrible polling numbers around as well.
Yeah, but related to that, Todd, we had some numbers this week from Nanos specifically on who Canadians trust the most when it comes to managing the economy. The Conservatives came out on top widely. And then when you drill down to that 18 to 34 metric, that age group that the Liberals are specifically trying to target with these initiatives, they were in fourth place. It was the Conservatives, and then it was Canadians saying they trust no one, then the NDP, and then the Liberals. So in terms of ground to gain back, Todd, there certainly is a lot.
About 30 seconds for you, Larissa, to weigh in. Your last word on this.
Listen, I'm excited to see. Gosh, I was going to say I'm excited to see what that slow striptease will bring tomorrow. Not that excited. I think it's always good when provinces and the federal government work together. There's so many initiatives that prove that. If you can look through the bluster and look through the campaign mode, you'll actually find a lot of politicians who do want to work together and deliver results. And the housing crisis is real. And hopefully they'll find a solution that works for everybody.
Goretin, last word to you.
I'll just say this. Ultimately, the Liberals, it's too little, too late. They're in a terrible position because they did not take action for 9 years. And Canadians know that, and that's why you're not getting the response they need. But don't forget, the Conservatives play a role in creating this mess, and Canadians need to know that as well.
And Sabrina, your last word?
I think that I'm excited to see what the budget actually holds on April 16th, and I look forward to maybe another week of announcements next week. I think let's see what comes to the table, but hopefully more announcements on the economy.